Good morning and welcome to the newspaper review segment right here on Pan-African Television. We are coming to you from our studios in Abilinkwe 48 Swanika Street here in Accra. Let me remind you that we are streaming live on Facebook at Pan-African Television. We are also live on YouTube at Pan-African Television. You can connect with us via our WhatsApp stroke text line on 0260846539, 0260846539. You can as well leave your comments, suggestions, questions, and whatnot on our social media pages. We'll make a time and read all those for you. My name is Justice Appiah, and today I'm sitting in for my brother Kwame Osu Danso. Now, let me take you through the topics of discussion on the show this morning. South African accused of fraud for saying he's African. Daily Graphic story on page 5. MPP won't legalize Okada. We will give you cars. Samioku tells Okada riders. Daily Post story on page 7. Judge removed from Ken's case. Daily Guide story on page 3. And finally, we'll be looking at Bagri Dam cause of flood in Accra. Nadbom boss says, and the story is captured on page 3 and 10 of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. I've been joined in the studio by Honorable Enosa Fuseni, Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, and also Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is the Managing Editor of the Inside newspaper. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Honorable, I'll start with you on the African story. South African accused of fraud for saying he's African.
Well, once again, it's a Thursday, and let me extend my sincere regards to you, my brother Kwesi Pratt, and your viewers across the country and Africa. Indeed, when I saw this story, I was taken a little aback. Because this is a legacy of the apartheid regime. During the apartheid regime, persons were classified for the purposes of enjoying privileges. Now, so you were either a black, a colored, an Indian, or a white. I mean, if you read Mind Boy by Peter Abrahams, you read other books on apartheid South Africa, you'll be left in no doubt that if you were classified as black, you had the lowest of privileges within the community. In fact, you virtually had no rights. Virtually, you had no rights. Your duty was to be sent to the mines and your labor exploited. And so, persons who were born to mixed race, that is a black and an Indian, a black and a white. In fact, it was almost a crime for a black to engage in sexual intercourse leading to marriage with a white. I mean, whites who were born, and you would have heard of Trevor Noah's account of how he was born and how he was being kept in the house and prevented. I mean, because if the police cited him, they would take him away from his family. Because part of the discriminatory policies of the apartheid South African regime was to come to the conclusion that blacks were incapable of raising children to be useful and responsible citizens of the community. And so if you were colored, they will move you from and you were staying with a black community family, they will move you away from the family into a foster home. Or you were an Indian, they had little privileges. They could open shops, they could serve as clerks, and all those things. And then you had the whites who enjoyed the highest of privileges in South Africa. Now this story is a little backward. It shows how South African community society has a lot to do to amend its laws. Basically, the identification of people by reference to their color, the color of their eyes, the color of their skin, the ethnic group they belong to, and all such things is discriminatory in nature, has the propensity to sow the seeds of discrimination. So it will be important for you and I to describe ourselves Ghanaian than me in the forms. That's why Ghana, when we came to the conclusion that we are one people in one nation with a common destiny, you will find that forms that you feel, hitherto when I was going to school, you will find even forms where they will provide for religion. You could find forms where they will provide for tribe. You could find different forms. All those categorizations, in the view of the Ghanaian community and polity, was or could be potentially discriminatory. And so this is why now when you are feeling from, the way you ask your religion, because religion is your personal choice, or your tribe. Nobody chooses his tribe. You are born into a tribe. You don't choose it. You don't choose the color of your skin. So why should you describe yourself in reference to your skin? So this person, I think, is a progressive person. In reading the story, you see clearly that he had been standing against the classification of people by reference to the color of their skins. Martin Luther said he's looking to a day where his children shall not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Nobody should be judged by the color of our skins. It is what is in us that will show whether you are a good person or you are a bad person. You are sympathetic and empathetic, or you don't care for you don't have a fellow feeling. And I seriously think that South African society, South African community, the country South Africa need to reform its laws. This person, because he opposed the classification of people by reference to the color of his skins, he was applying for a post of head teacher. And when they asked him the color classification, he said he's African. And I'm surprised even that they said he had committed a crime of fraud. All persons who are born in South Africa, who have still got South African citizenship by virtue of birth, it doesn't matter where they are, whether they are native Indians or whether they are native Netherlands or whatever, or native Germans. If a person is born in South Africa by reason, acquires South African citizenship by reason of birth, he is an African. That's why Peter Tosh says that no matter where you come from, as long as you are a black man, you are an African. You are an African. And so I think that South African society ought to do a lot to be able to move away from these colonial legacies of having to identify people by the color of their skins, and also having to award privileges or give privileges to persons in South Africa by reference to the color of their skin. It's discriminatory in nature. It is not progressive. It's not what for local societies to engage in.
To find many South Africans who actually see Africans as aliens. There are many South Africans who would see an African from Nigeria or Ghana as an alien, who have hostility towards an African from Sierra Leone or Morovia, or Liberia, rather than have hostility towards somebody from Holland or England and so on. So it has a long history. Now, how can you be a South African and not be an African? And to claim that a South African who claimed to be African and therefore has been fraudulent and ought to be punished, is the weirdest thing that I've ever heard. Because I would have thought that everybody in an African country is an African. And indeed, as Alhaji Yunus Afuseni says, if you're a black man, you're an African, and so on. So this is a very weird case. It may also, to some extent, explain the xenophobia, that is building up in South Africa and so on. In any case, this is a campaigner who does not accept race classifications and does not want people to be known as colored, black, white, or whatever. This is somebody who is campaigning on the unity of the human race, who is campaigning on the basis of the fact that all human beings are equal and ought to be treated equally. And that is what motivated him in declaring on his letter of application that he's an African. And yet, he's fallen into all these difficulties. I think that a lot of work remains to be done in South Africa on the question of race and color. And this is a clear indication of the amount of work that needs to be done in South Africa.
All right, thank you so much. We'll move to the next topic. MPP won't legalize Okada. We'll give you cars. Samir Oku tells Okada riders. And Honorable, I'll start with you once again.
Well, I think that MPP is trying to understand the legal rational basis for the decision of the NDC to promise to legalize the commercialization of motorcycle use in this country, which we call Okada. First of all of us have to understand that there is no law that prohibits a person from riding a motorbike in Ghana. In fact, the police ride motorbikes. So there's no law. Two, there is no law in Ghana prohibiting a person from giving another person a lift as a pillion rider in Ghana. There's no law prohibiting that. The law prohibiting the carrying of another person on the motorbike for commercial activities has been around for a very long time. In fact, it's part of the British colonial legacy. And so Ghana is confronted with a situation where in the past, and even now as we speak, the taking of passengers on a motorbike for valuable consideration or for payment is unlawful. Now, but we are confronted with a social phenomenon. And what is a social phenomenon? There are more cars in Ghana today than in 1960, indeed than in 1970, indeed than in 1980. Every year, the number of cars on our streets increases. The streets do not increase in relation to the number of vehicles on the road, so we have congestion. Now, there are areas in Ghana that are underserviced by commercial vehicles. People, if you miss a vehicle on a market day, you simply have to wait the next market day to be able to travel. There are many of our areas which in the rainy season are cut off by rain. And the only way you can get to those communities is the use of a motorbike. The government appreciates that. The government appreciates that. And all governments have appreciated that. The NPP government just last week brought into this country more than 1,000 motorbikes for distribution to public workers. And these workers will ride the motorbikes and give lift to passengers, to people. Now, but because of the social phenomenon of the inaccessibility of certain parts of this country, the convenience of using motorcycles in major cities in Accra because of the traffic congestion, the fact that people have found a business people have found a business in the use of motorbikes for commercial purposes, we have to look at how to make it legal, to make it possible for these people to go on with their lawful legal activities without infringing the law or harassment from the law enforcement agencies. That is the government, that is the thinking, that is the rationale for saying that NDC will legalize Okada. What will legalization bring? Legalization will bring regulation. You can't license. I hear some I could say that they won't legalize. In one vein, he says they will license and formalize Okada. They will license, but they won't legalize. You can't legalize. You can't license without legalizing. You can't formalize without legalizing. But because we were first to use, we will legalize, they are finding it difficult to use legalize. So they are using words that are synonyms to legalize. If you are going to formalize, you are going to bring it into the formal sector. So you are going to legalize it. You are going to grant a license. You are going to grant an authority. A license is a permit for somebody to engage. So immediately that person has a license, that activity has been what? Legalized. So these are ways of legalizing. So they better come. I mean, this is a time for them to hit the humble pie and say, look, it was not within our contemplation. But we think that this is a smart manifesto promise. I mean, if they say that, and they say that they will also legalize, Ghanaians will understand. Because why? In Benin, Ghana has more cars than Benin. But Benin has legalized Okada. In Rwanda, Okada has been legalized. And let me tell you what it will do for us. It will improve security. Now, everywhere, every corner, you'll find people standing in corners with motorbikes waiting to lift or offer services to those who need them. Who are they? Where did they come from? If a motorbike rider picks you as pylon passenger and takes money, and along the way, attacks you, how are you going to report? Because you don't know, they are not formalized. Formalization will enable us enable them form associations and register so that we know where they operate from. Their numbers and everything will now be part of the data of the DVA that can be monitored. That's why taxis are given different number plates. That's why. Now, formalization will now bring in tax. Because they'll be doing commercial. In Ghana, you can't do a commercial activity without payment of tax. So all the money, all the tax that we are losing in this country by reason of not formalizing Okada will be brought back. We'll get the tax. We'll get the tax. 3, legalization will bring regulation of the business itself. Sometimes you see a motorbike rider, Okada rider, take 3 passengers. 3. Legalization will tell you that if an Okada rider takes 3 passengers, it will be an offense. That can be contained in the regulation. So you are regulating it to improve safety for the use of the motorbike. Legalization will help us control speed limits. So if you legalize, they say, look, fine, if you want to do the Okada business, yes, but every motorbike has got a speedometer. No motorbike should move beyond 30 mph per hour, 30 miles per hour, or 10 miles per hour, or 20. Legalization will allow us to do that. So that if a motorbike moves beyond that, it will be an offense. But now there is nothing controlling them. They can move at 100 even if they want. That's what legalization will do. Legalization will also enable us to regulate the service itself. In Accra, If you want to operate Okada in Accra, you can only use these streets. These streets. So now they are everywhere. They are meandering in motor vehicles. Legalization will let us regulate them to show them where they can use and where they cannot use. But now, because they are not, legalization will improve upon the safety of the riders themselves. That's why the riders think that this idea of legalizing is the best that has come to them. Because when they see policemen, they try to dodge. They try to escape because they know that they are engaged in an illegal activity. In trying to escape, they ride recklessly and they get involved in accidents. Those who don't get involved in accidents but get caught by the police, they say the police take the money away from them. Legalization will keep the money with them. Regulate them. When they are approaching a policeman, they won't be that afraid unless you don't have a permit to do that. If all your documents are okay, what will be your problem? If you are following the route that has been approved for motorbikes, what will be your problem? If you have picked a pylon rider, not 2 pylon riders on your motorbike, what will be your problem? That's what NDC wants to do. NDC wants to bring some order and discipline in society. And if Samuel Awuku and the MPP doesn't know, the greatest threat to Ghana is the level of indiscipline in society. And for us, we must begin to work to reduce the level of indiscipline in society. And when we legalize Okada, we will be helping to do that. Finally, Okada business did not come because there were no cars. Okada business did not come because the people had no money to buy cars. Okada business did not come into being because the people simply thought that if we have cars, we will leave the motorbikes. What is driving Okada business is convenience. Not comfort, convenience. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, when we were discussing the same matter, the Venerable Kosipra told us here that he knows somebody who has a BMW, who once upon a time packed his BMW and rode a motorbike. So it was not for comfort. Obviously, his BMW is more comfortable than the motorbike, but it's for convenience. It becomes faster where he was. It will be faster to park his motor vehicle and use a motorbike to get to where he wants to get to. So that's convenience. It's convenient for him to do that. Now, 2, when it's because the roads are congested. That is why they are using the motorbike. So if you are adding vehicles, what are you doing? You are further congesting the road. So you are not dealing with the situation. The situation that has brought about Okada is because of the congestion of the roads. And the service communities. The vehicles that you are given, will it be able to go to those communities? Those outlying communities where there are no roads or where the roads are bad? That is why the motorbikes go there. Are you going to do all the roads to those communities? And with your track record of non-performance, how can you do it? So when we are talking to people, we must appreciate that these people also have some level of reasoning. They understand. They understand the intricacies of the business. They understand why they are doing what they are doing. So many years ago, there was no Kayayo in Accra. We didn't have Kayayo. In fact, those who were there providing that service were from Togo. They were mostly the Kotokolis. When agri collapsed, when farming collapsed, when women could no longer get jobs to do, when poverty increased in the northern part of this country, it drove idle hands who wanted to improve their lot in the north down south. When they came down south, they found work. were carrying goods that are bought as headquarters. When they were trying to send them back, we argued in Parliament that it is because there is that service, that's why they are there. The government should be looking at how to provide, to give them, protect them, than to send them back. Because if you send them back, they'll come, because they must leave. What is driving them is the need, the right to life. They want to enjoy that right to life. And so they will move. So when they move, what do? You have to. And migration has been an age-long matter. All of us are here because once upon a time our parents migrated. So that is just like the Okada. The earlier MPP understood that they are dealing with a social phenomenon. And NDC understands the social phenomenon and wants to deal with it comprehensively and decisively, the better.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Pratt, your take on this?
Well, it is clear that some of the politicians do not understand this business of Okada. They have no understanding what the Okada business is about. The Okada business sprang out of a business opportunity. People realized that in the urban areas, traffic was congested and there was heavy congestion. And as a result, people were not able to move about quickly and freely. And that if they introduce a motorbike service, it will enable people to carry on their duties and so on, much more quickly. And that is why the last time we discussed this Okada business, I told the story of a guy who had bought a brand new BMW, and he abandoned that BMW and rode Okada. Yeah. Because he was extremely late for an important meeting. And if he did not take an Okada, he could not reach that meeting. Then if you go to the rural areas, there are many places without motorable roads. And the Okada is able to use footpaths and so on. You understand? So where there are no motorable roads, Okada serves as an alternative, as a practical alternative and so on.
Yeah.
Now, if you take the urban centers where there's a lot of congestion and so on, if you give the Okada riders cars, they then do not present as an alternative to taxis. They do not present as alternatives to trotros and so on. And indeed, they will worsen the situation because there will be a lot more cars on the roads and there will be a lot more congestion. You understand?
Very well.
So this promise of offering cars as a replacement for motorbikes is not sensible at all. And it does not realize, what created that business opportunity which led to the emergence of Okada. One of the reasons why many people have gone into the Okada business instead of joining, the taxi business is simply the fact that they cannot afford cars. The initial investment in driving a taxi and so on is so huge that they simply cannot afford cars. You understand? So if you're going to give them cars and so on, who is going to pay for the cars? The people who cannot afford cars, who have gone in for Okada, you're not going to give them cars. Who is going to pay for the cars? What arrangement are you making in order to ensure that indeed the cars you're going to give them are affordable and will be paid for? Unless, of course, we are saying that we are going to give them cars subsidized by the state or cars that will be paid for by the state. Again, it simply doesn't make any sense at all. What we have to appreciate is that there are about 2 million Okada riders, in this country. That's a huge percentage of the voting population. And the promise by former President John Dramani Mahama to legalize it indeed increases potential of winning the elections by that margin. Because all the Okada riders then said that, look, if the former president is the one who is going to legalize our trade, then we're going to vote for him. And this sent a panic wave in the political establishment. And this is what is leading to all kinds of people coming up and making all kinds of strange promises, to the Okada operators. Since the promise was made to legalize Okada, there have been all kinds of publications, and today you see all kinds of publications showing the number of people who have had accidents, and they claim that the accidents are caused by Okada and so on. I think what we have to understand clearly is that it's not all motorbike riders who are commercial. You understand? So if you take the number of motorbike accidents we have and simply describe them as Okada, I think that you are misleading the public. You are clearly misleading the public. There are so many people who ride motorbikes for private purposes. Some even ride motorbikes as a sport and so on. You understand? Now, I cannot understand why if you have your own motorbike, you can ride it in town, you can use it to ferry your child to school, you can put your wife at the back and so on, and there's no problem. It's not an offense. But the moment you take money for putting somebody on your motorbike, you commit an offense. What is the problem? Is the problem the taking of the money? Or the insecurity which is engendered by the use of motorbikes? Somebody must be telling us something more sensible than what we are hearing. Because you can put somebody on two people can ride the motorbike and go anywhere they want, it's not an offense. The moment you take money from the person sitting behind you, it becomes an offense. What is this? So motorbikes, if they are dangerous as Okada and they are dangerous for private use. I haven't seen any country anywhere in the world where the riding of motorbikes is illegal. No country anywhere in the world. You understand?
Yeah.
And if you come to the sub-region, the West African sub-region, as a matter of fact, the term Okada is actually from Nigeria. Yeah. Throughout the sub-region, Okada business is thriving. In Togo, in Benin, in Nigeria, in La Côte d'Ivoire, and so on. So, why is Ghana so different from the rest of the other places and so on? Now, I think politicians must begin to realize that the Ghanaian population is not foolish. The Ghanaian population is not foolish at all. And if you call Okada riders and you tell them that, oh, we will license you, we will regulate you, but we will not legalize you, what are you talking about? How do you license a business and regulate a business if that business is illegal? So the politicians are talking at both sides of their mouth.
Yeah.
And they're talking at both sides of their mouth basically because they assume that those of us who are listening to them are not discerning enough or are just plain stupid. I think they should stop insulting us. We've had enough of their insults, and it is time for them to stop insulting us any further.
All right, thank you so much. You are still watching Good Morning Africa right here on Pan-African Television. Keep your messages coming in on 026084 6539, 026084 6539. We are live on Facebook. Leave your comments and suggestions there. We'll make a time and read all those out for you. Judge removed from Ken's case. Honorable.
This is a very difficult one. Now, because I know Amos Muni, yeah, Justice Amos Muni, he was my 1 year senior in the Legal School. I also know him to have been a former worker, former deputy chief executive of the Lands Commission. So he worked under me when I was the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. He's a straightforward and no-nonsense guy. So when I heard that he had joined the bench, I was not surprised at all. It was his son who communicated to me that I didn't even know his son. I mean, he had to introduce himself. Who communicated to me that his father had joined the bench. I've not had opportunity to meet him since he joined the bench, and so I think that So he's an old boy of Nalilebu Secondary School. I mean, we are going places, my brother. You are going places. So let me take opportunity to wish old boy Amos Winnie the best in his new endeavor. You see, when you produce a larger-than-life politician, it's difficult to deal with him. The establishment will all be afraid of him. Kennedy Japan is now larger than life. And we built him up that way consistently over the periods. We gave him a TV station and a radio station. We gave him contracts, big contracts to get money. We made him almost the de facto financier of a political party. So at any point in time, he grows and he grows larger. The character of a person doesn't change. It is the money that changes the person. It's power that changes the person. Now, so if people thought that this man who had hustled in Germany and in the United States of America had acquired some native intelligence in his pursuits in Germany and America and will be humble, accommodating, tolerant, and so ought to build him up to be a successful businessman and a politician. I think that those people who thought that way will be rewriting their notes. But we are not helped in any way by the state establishments, by the executive, by parliament, and he's a member of parliament that had opportunity even to insult parliament. By the executive, for the executive, anytime you watch his clips on Facebook, you wonder whether the MPP is simply afraid of him. Because some of the things that he says, clearly, if Inus Afiseni says that the NDC will call me, to either sanction me or advise me to stop what I'm saying. So he's a law unto himself. That's the problem. That is the problem that is confronting us. In 2016, Mugabe and others sat on a news network, a radio station, and said things which the judiciary felt was scandalous of the judicial service or of judges, not the service of judges. They hold them before the courts. They hold them before the court and mulcted them in prison terms. Impose prison terms on them. When His Excellency John Dramani Mahama exercised his powers under the Constitution to grant them pardon, the exercise of his powers was challenged in court by Brintu. Brintu said that the president, the Brintu who is now secretary to the president, went to court to say that the president, even though the Constitution had manifestly given him powers to grant prerogative of mercy, to grant pardon to persons, the president's excess of that pardon in that circumstance was wrongful. Now, we are now confronted with a similar situation. In the trial of the election related case, you know, saw the number of people who were hauled to court by reason of pronouncements that they had heard, they had made, that touched on the integrity of the judges who were sitting on the matter. And they were hauled before court. The building of Kennedy Japan's persona to be an untouchable person in society continues in all aspects. Maybe those who are doing it unwittingly, not knowing that they are contributing to making him somebody who could act with impunity. Because the first, and I heard a lawyer argue vociferously that the comments were targeted at a particular judge, and so another judge could not have jurisdiction to deal with, and that they were going to court to challenge. That's why I say that they might not know that they are unwittingly contributing to the persona of the person to make him a larger than life person. Now the Supreme Court says, but it has a basis. I've read the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. The judges are saying that he was winning in his court. I mean, the lawyers for Canada, Japan applied to the Supreme Court for a relief, and that relief was to have the case transferred to another judge. The grounds of that relief is simply that the hostility exhibited towards them by the judge sitting on the case, in which case this judge was winning, he said that they cannot have manifest justice delivered in the matter. And justice must be seen to be done at all times and manifestly seen to be done. And so they prayed the court to have another judge sit on the matter who will not display open bias and hostility towards them. And because the judges are enjoined by the rules of natural justice, by the fact that justice must be seen to be done at all times, they acceded to the request of lawyers for the contempt law or potential contempt law. Contempt law in this case is Canada, Japan. And so they have had the case transferred to another judge. It has implications, but those implications can only be political implications. But judicially, the judges have done what have been convinced that the judges of the Supreme Court have been convinced that the High Court judge sitting on the matter has shown open bias and hostility towards Canada, Japan, and so has to have the case moved to another court. But politically, it's also building into the narrative of creating Canada, Japan as a larger than life person.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Let me go for a quick break. We'll be right back.
Breakfast good day, every day.
Nestle, good food, good life.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Breakfast good day, every day.
Every day.
Nestle, good food, good life.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Africa right here on Pan African Television. Keep your messages coming in. Very soon we'll be taking some of your messages and all of that. But let me come to Mr. Pratt on this particular one.
Well, you know that anywhere where you do journalism, you are required to do press law. And one of the things that you study under press law is the law of contempt.
Exactly.
So in the classroom, we were taught that there were two types of contempt. Contempt in facie cura and contempt ex facie cura. Contempt in facie cura is contempt in the face of the court. You understand?
Yeah.
That is when you commit contempt in the courtroom. And contempt ex facie cura is contempt which is committed outside the courtroom. Now, contempt was defined simply as actions or utterances which scandalize the court.
Yeah.
Actions or utterances which threaten the court, which make it impossible for the court to carry out its duties and so on. And then actions and utterances which are prejudicial to the determination of the case and so on. You understand?
Yeah.
Now, my first brush with the law, contempt, was actually in the Labadi Magistrate Court. And interestingly, in the Labadi Magistrate Court, I think it was in 1973, the presiding magistrate was Justice Brobe, who has risen to become one of the biggest names, you know, in Ghanaian judiciary and so on. And my offense was that I had gone to the court as a reporter in T-shirt. The judge noticed me sitting down and taking notes and said, "Who is that man?" That was a reporter. So you came to my court in a T-shirt, and he ordered the police to arrest me immediately and place me before him for trial. Instant. I mean, he didn't refer, he ordered the police in the courtroom to arrest me and place me before him for trial. It was as a result of pleadings by lawyers and so on that he left me off the hook. Another journalist colleague of mine was also cited for contempt. And his offense was that he was reading a newspaper in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Reading a newspaper in the courtroom, and it was deemed to be distracting attention. So the judge in that court ordered him to be arrested and brought before him for contempt. And that has been the norm with all contempt cases I've known, except in the case of Kennedy Japan. You understand? Now, we are being told today that in the case of the Muntie 3, the judges who were directly affected did not sit on the case. And therefore, a certain precedent has been created which should also be used in the Kennedy Japan case. I think that is not true. It's not true. In the case of the Muntie 3, the judge involved also happened to be the Chief Justice, who was not on the panel. She was not on the panel. You understand? If she was on the panel, that would have, and she recused herself, that would have been perfect. It would have sat with the decision of the Supreme Court today. But the Chief Justice was not on the panel. And that's how come the Supreme Court tried the case with the judge so-called, who allegedly directly affected, not sitting on the case. I think we should understand this very clearly. So the claim that in the case of the Muntie 3, the judges affected recuse themselves, or the impression that they recuse themselves, is false, completely false and untenable. And then we're told that the judge has been removed from the case, has been removed from the case because he's sitting in a case in which he has interest, a case that has a direct bearing on himself, it was not the judge who was scandalized. If the judge has been scandalized, if there's been some scandalization, it is the court which is scandalized and not the judge, in the case of contempt cases. So I find it exceedingly strange that the issue is being personalized. You know, that the judge is sitting in judgment over a case involving him. Contempt is scandalization of the court, not the judge. Of course, some would argue that there's only a thin line between the judge and the court and so on. But clearly, there ought to be a distinction between the judge and the court and so on. So I find this exceedingly strange, you know, exceedingly strange. Now we're being told that the Supreme Court has quashed all decisions of the High Court, except the decision to try Kennedy Japan. All the orders which have been given by the High Court have been quashed. So there's going to be a fresh trial. And the reports I read yesterday from the social media, and I'm very, very cautious because it is possible that the social media reporting of what happened in court may not be accurate. But what I read indicated that the Supreme Court had directed the Deputy Attorney General to do the prosecution. That's exceedingly strange. Because prosecution is at the behest of the Attorney General. You understand? It's the Attorney General who delegates who has to prosecute a particular case, not the Supreme Court. So if it is true that the Supreme Court has directed that the Deputy Attorney General should do the prosecution, that would be very, very strange. Exceedingly strange. You understand? On what basis? What's the legal basis? There's no legal basis, you know, for that. Then there's something which is very interesting. We all understand the politics of our country. We all know, as claimed even by the sitting president. The sitting president, one of the justifications he offered for appointing a special prosecutor was simply that there exists a public perception that the Attorney General is not separate and independent from the executive. That's what the sitting president said. That's what the New Patriotic Party said. So if that forms the basis for the appointment of a special prosecutor, in order to demonstrate some independence and neutrality and so on, how is that independence and neutrality demonstrated in the case of the contempt case against Kennedy Japan? And how can we reasonably expect that such a high-profile member of the New Patriotic Party and so on will be effectively prosecuted by the Attorney General? And if it is possible for such a high-profile member of the New Patriotic Party, member of Parliament and so on, to be effectively prosecuted by the Attorney General, then where is the justification for the creation of the Office of the Special Prosecutor? So it's a very complex case, you know. Bottom line, this case ought to be handled in such a way that the accused person, in this case, Honorable Kennedy Japan, will be given all the opportunity to defend himself. This case ought to be tried in a manner in which all the rights of the accused person will be respected. This case ought to be tried in a manner which will bring justice and so on. But at the same time, we ought to be exceedingly careful about the precedent we are setting. You understand? We ought to be exceedingly careful about the precedent we are setting. Is this going now to become the norm for contempt cases? I think we've reached a new situation where no court can actually now drag anybody before it for committing contempt in that court. You understand what I'm saying?
Very well.
There's the new precedent we are setting. And this is a decision of the Supreme Court, which means that all the lower courts will have to respect that decision. So today, no magistrate court, which is abused and scandalized and so on, can try an accused person for contempt. No high court. Even the courts of appeal cannot do that. If you are comfortable with this precedent, fine. One thing which is clear is that every Ghanaian, or most Ghanaians, the vast majority of Ghanaians, are waiting for the outcome of this case. Especially because of our history, and especially because of the history of the trial of the Muntie Three. There have been so many high-profile contempt cases in this country before. I mean, the late Owusu Afriye, alias Sir John, was tried by the Supreme Court for contempt. And it was pleadings from people like Aikwe Otu and so on, which enabled him to escape, conviction and so on. Sami Awuku, the national organizer of the New Patriotic Party, was tried by the Supreme Court for contempt and so on. How come that in those cases, we didn't come up with a rule that the court which is scandalized cannot try the person who has committed contempt? So it is not only the Muntie Three which have been tried for contempt before. Sami Oku was tried for contempt, Sir John was tried for contempt, and many others have been tried for contempt. The precedent does not appear to be working. Now, for those in the NDC, the lawyers in the NDC and so on, who want to be holier than St. Peter, this is an important lesson for them. When the president rightfully exercises his powers of pardon and so on, there's so many of them who went haywire and so on. They should compare that to what is happening today. I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pratt, for your submission. Finally, Bagri Dam cause of flood in Accra. NADMO boss says, New Crusading Guide, page 3 and 10. Honorable.
Well, when I read this story, I just thought that they call him Honorable Ajiman Prempe. I don't remember him in Parliament, though, but that's, or he was an assemblyman. But that's his name. That's it, Honorable Ajiman Prempe. I was taken aback that what he said discloses and exposes him to lack of knowledge on the water course of the Bagri Dam. The potential area that the Bagri Dam can affect, and which effect will be manifest, is the area immediately abutting the Burkina Faso. And that is the northeast part of this country. The effect of the Bagri Dam will now then be felt along the banks of the river that collects the water. So you can see it in Kumbungu, you can see it along that distance, Nawune, because that is the river that will carry the water, and so the river has overflown. After the northern region, you don't see the effect of Bagri Dam anywhere. By the time it gets into parts of the Volta region, parts of Savannah region, and parts of Volta region, it goes all the way to Akosombo. And that is part of the dam, the water from the dam that gives us the hydroelectric power. How can that be the cause of the flood in Accra? It doesn't pass through Kaswa. Kaswa is very far away from Akosombo. So how can that be part of the flooding? Which river is around Kaswa that has overflown these banks? That is causing the floods. I don't just understand the man. We have heavy downpour. People are building up in areas where they ought not to build up. Because they build up, the water used to flow but spread out. The built up areas now constrict the flow of the water to predetermined areas. when you limit the flow of water or restrict the flow of water to a predetermined channel, you increase the velocity of the flow. And when you increase the velocity of the flow, the kinetic energy in the water can cause damage. The force can cause damage. If you want to understand what restricting water to a predetermined channel can do, then look at what we are enjoying in this room. Electricity. It's just that river that engineers restricted the flow of the water to 6 turbines. And that 6 turbines even impede the flow. The impediment put in the water allows the water to turn the turbines. And while the turbines continue spinning on their axis, giant magnetic fields are created, and that gives us light. So if you are channeling this energy to light, what about in Castle where you don't have anything for the water? That energy just goes and takes away. Now, so it's a question of planning. What have the planning authorities done in order to ensure that because Kaswa is developing, they will build enough drains and rain gutters to contain the flow of water? What have they done? What have they done in areas of Accra which are flood prone for the purposes of creating natural reservoirs? Some parts of the land, and if you are in the air, you will see it clearly. God in his wisdom created some parts of the earth to be low-lying, and they become natural receptacles of flowing water. The water will first gather there until it's full, then it will start spilling off. That gives people, I mean, it is nature's way of regulating everything on earth. Now we've gone to those areas and we build them up. We build them up. So when the water comes, it no longer has a natural reservoir. It no longer has it. So it has to control flowing. And so it enters people's homes. What has happened? There is no scientific evidence that links the flood that occurred after the 2 days of rain in Accra to the spillage of the Barrow Dam. And if we put such people in charge of NADMO, you can understand why we have difficulties. Now, my last point is simply this. If government has failed in planning, if government has failed the people, is it the responsibility of NADMO to redeem the image of government? Because this what he did was a PR gimmick for government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable, for your submission. Let me take a few of our messages on Facebook. This one says, what kind of country are we living in? And the president doesn't see or hear anything apart from the word Sakawa. One person is untouchable. The likes of these people like Kennedy Japan. Honorable, thank you so much for your message. Ibrahim Watara. Ghana is for sale. Thank you so much for your message. This one says, we are selling Ghana to some people and later we cannot handle some of these issues. Again, thank you so much for your message. Dr. Akoboy says the NDC claiming they will legalize Okada is a mere propaganda. I want to ask him, what of the MPP buying cars and buses for over 2 million Okada guys? The people, he says, these people, they call themselves honorables and are not telling Ghanaians the real situation on the ground. Philip, you've sent in this one from Italy. Thank you so much for your message. Right from day one, I don't believe and trust the Supreme Court in their decisions. Thank you so much for your message. We have lots of messages, but let me take some few on the tablet also. We have a lot of messages coming in. This one says, good morning. Giving cars and motors to run commercially will only compound the traffic congestion on our roads. Mind you, taxi drivers are even struggling to make their earnings with the existence of more trotro buses. John Mahama brought in yellow motor cars, so he will surely fulfill his promise of legalizing Okada. Yakubu in Tamale sent in that one. Yakubu, thank you so much for your message. This one says, good morning, Justice. Tell the MPP to give us a break. They should try and campaign on corruption. Musa in Yendi sent in that one. This one says, please, in my village, there are 64 Okada riders. If 64 cars are given to them, how many? Please stop calling the WhatsApp line. How many passengers would they take? Would they carry people to their farms? Thank you so much for your message. This one says, good morning, Justice. Regards to your panel members, if you have a president who is afraid of Kennedy Japan, what do you expect? The Ghanaians are watching and God is witnessing. Thank you for your message. You did not add your name. This one says, good morning, Justice. I salute your guests in the studio. The politicians should stop insulting us. Sometimes if they want to lie, they should know that Ghanaians are not kids. MPP, because you want to defeat your opponent, that you are telling lies. Cars from where? MPP is so funny. Thank you so much for your message. Good morning, Justice. Good morning, Justice. President Akufo-Addo is a great failure. Ghanaians are waiting to kick him out of government in the next 53 days ahead. When you see the word hardship, say MPP. Thank you so much for your message. This one says, good morning, Justice. Samuel Oku needs to promise the Okada riders roads because you can't promise bridge without a river. My regards to Mr. Pratt and Honorable Inus Afuseni. Yeah, you've sent in this one from Kwanta. Thank you so much for your message. I'm not surprised because whatever issue arises today in Kennedy Japan's contempt case was said all by Kevin Taylor weeks ago. MPP has gradually reduced all state institutions to its lowest standard. From Johnson in K2 North. Johnson, thank you so much for your message. Good morning to your able men for educative submission to the public this morning. The 50 vehicles that were given to the NCC for use during the COVID-19, the government has taken back 25 of these vehicles to be given to their party for campaign. Find out from the New Patriotic Party whether the COVID-19 is no more in Ghana. Greetings to Mr. Pratt and Honorable Inus Afuseni from James in Kumasi. James, thank you so much for your message. Votarians, please reject MPP's money and vote massively for change. The future of our children is in our hands. Votarians must follow good policies than 2 bowls of maize and 50 Ghana cedis. John Dramani Mahama, Ghanaians are crying for you. Abochi Philip from Keta constituency. Abochi, thank you so much for your message. The MPP is distributing motorbikes in all parts of the country and yet preaching that it's dangerous to ride. Do they want them to perish? Is it that they are collecting money that makes, is it a collection of money that makes it dangerous? MPP is just a 419 party. Johnny, well, I'm Justice, not Johnny. Justice, the riding should be banned in Ghana, whether commercial or private, if precaution is not taken. Thank you so much for your message. We have a lot of messages, but we need to continue. Mr. Pratt, your take on the final topic.
Well, an engineer has rubbished that claim this morning. An engineer in one of the newspapers actually says that the flood is the result of the mismanagement of the topography of the area. And he says that the area has been used for sand winning over a long period of time, and that there should have been serious efforts at land reclamation And if there had been serious efforts at land reclamation, we wouldn't have had the floods. I mean, I agree entirely with the submission of Alhaji Nusaf Husseini. You know, the connection between the spillage in the Bagri Dam and the flooding in Accra is not there. There's no connection. It simply doesn't make sense at all. In that we have experienced flooding in these areas at times when the Bagri Dam, you know, there's been no spillage from the Bagri Dam and so on. And then the NADMO boss goes to the extent of appealing to the public to stop putting rubbish in drains and so on. Yes, of course, we have to stop putting rubbish in drains. But I've taken the trouble to go around the drains in Alajo and other places. What is choking the drains is not rubbish. What is choking the drains is sand. And they need to be desilted. We are not doing that. I mean, if you go to Aveno in Accra, one of the drains is so full of sand that actually children sometimes play football in the drain. You understand? So officials should stop making these excuses. I'm wondering why the NADMO boss will be making these excuses, you know, because these excuses don't hold any water at all.
All right, thank you so much. Let me take a few of our messages and then wrap up. This one says, good morning, Justice, and to your panelists, especially Uncle Kwesi Pratt. Justice, former President John Dramani Mahama prosecuted his own, but President Dankwa Akufo-Addo is clearing and covering his own, and we are not safe. Good morning. Good morning to you too. This one says, Comrade Kwesi Pratt, you have made my day. Thank you so much for your message. We should have a government that will dedicate half of its term or a whole term to the planning, engineering, and building of roads, gutters, and bridges. I swear this will bring peace and boom up the economy. Thank you so much for your message. If Farouk in Tamale says, no diversionary tactics and lies can save the MPP anymore. The hardships Ghanaians are currently going through is enough. Change we need. Thank you so much, A. Farouk, for your message. Just salute Mr. Pratt and my honorable for me. Ghanaians are very proud of them. They are assets for the nation. Sadiq in Tamale sent in this one. Good morning, Justice. NPP should be careful what they are turning our higher institutions into, or they will live to regret it. Greetings to the incoming MP for Ayawaso Central Constituency, Roxin from Pig Farm, sent in that one. Good morning, and to your panelists. My dear Okada riders should take a casual look at the promises of President Akufo-Addo's government on Galamsey and small-scale miners before and after they won power. The MPP government is clueless, indecisive, inept, scam, and highly corrupt. Let's kick them out come December in the coming December polls. Mojib, Ronaldo in Techima, JM and Christopher for Techima South. Thank you so much for your message. Deep Cool Ishmael, Old Traffic says, shade to you all. This Honorable Kennedy Japan will walk a free man. He is untouchable and the president is even afraid of him. MPP is a funny party. President Dankwa Akufo-Addo, through the education minister, gave motorbikes to all circuit supervisors. Did President give the bikes to them to go and kill themselves? Greetings to Chairman Bonus, NDC Regional Chairman for Upper West Region. Thank you so much, Dipku, for your message. Good morning, but who was expecting anything from Ken's court case? We knew what will happen already. Who dares prosecute him? You've sent in that one from Kwabenya. Thank you so much for your message. Good morning to you and to your panelists. I think the journalists are not fair to Ghanaians because why are you people not talking about fuel, the CD, economy, corruption, and the borrowing? Let the government tell us why those things are not coming down and rather going up. Thank you so much for your message, Ali. You sent in that one from Tamale. Good morning, Justice. I don't get one thing. I thought these are big guys in power are well educated to produce results. Does it mean that going to school is a failure, or what I don't really understand some of the things they are doing. Thank you so much for your message. Honorable, the people of Dagbon are proud of you. He has sent in this one from Tamale. Thank you so much for your message. Good morning to you, and especially to my honorable MPP. To my honorable, MPP is a failure to Ghanaians. GM is a rescuer from this hardship. Thank you so much. Sometimes make your messages short, concise, and simple. Thank you so much for your message. Good morning, Justice. Would Attorney General be able to deal with anyone who will be involved in such act as done to the so-called King Japan? Indeed, many of MPs do not deserve to be called honorable. Thank you so much for your message. Good morning. MPPs are liars and the promise they give to Ghanaians they did not fulfill. Thank you so much for your message. I can't take your messages anymore. Our time is up and we have to go. Make a time with us same time tomorrow. My name is Justice Appiah and the show has been Good Morning Africa. Goodbye.